Today is the 10th anniversary of the light bulb switching on for me when it comes to radical feminism. In 2013, I was someone who believed that people could be born in the wrong body and that some men really felt like women, and who was I to tell them otherwise? This was just before the real explosion of gender identity ideology took over the internet. People with all kinds of different genders weren't a thing yet, not really, and no one had pronouns in bio or identified as anything other than man, woman, or maybe genderqueer. Non-binary hadn't taken off yet, and gender identity ideology was barely getting its feet. In this regard, the only things I was really faced with were trans men and trans women. Using the monikers FTM or MTF were common and not yet considered offensive because trans-identifying people largely still believed in biological sex. It wasn't transphobic or awful to say that trans women were born biologically male, or simply born male. Assigned at birth was not in our lexicon either. The term cotton ceiling had not even been coined yet, and no one had heard the word TERF either. I believed in true trans, and that some people were truly suffering with gender dysphoria, and transitioning, surgeries, and hormones were saving them. I believed in choice feminism to the extent that I thought women should be able to do whatever they wanted, even if I didn't personally agree with it all that much. I thought if a woman wanted to be wildly sexually promiscuous, or if a woman wanted to wear eyeliner sharp enough to kill a man, or if a woman wanted to be barefoot and pregnant always, or do porn, that was her prerogative. I had an extremely individualistic view of what feminism was. I believed it was down to the individual woman, her choices, her desires, her needs. Whatever a woman wanted for herself or her life was fine, because feminism was about women having all the same abilities as men to do whatever they wanted without barriers. I thought if a woman chose to do sex work, it was fine because she wanted to. I thought that slut walks were a good thing because women should be able to wear whatever they wanted without risk of harm from men. I thought surrogacy was a beautiful gift women gave to their loved ones. I thought whatever women chose to do with their lives and bodies was feminist, because it was a woman making that choice. What I failed to understand was all the factors, influences, socialization, cultures, and harms that lead women to choose what they choose. Liberal feminism does this every day. Liberal feminism is hyper-individualistic, with no class consciousness, no intersectionality, and no solidarity. In 2013, I had been on Tumblr for interacting with fandoms I was involved in, pop punk and screamo, The Walking Dead, and memes mostly. I'd been scrolling one day when many of my mutuals were reblogging the same post, a warning to block another user for being transphobic. This was new to me because I was a lefty, a liberal, a feminist, and I went along with the burgeoning idea of the day that not all women have vaginas. Transphobia was not something I encountered or heard of much because, again, in 2013, this stuff was barely getting off the ground. Intrigued, I went to read the blog of the user then known as Justice Badass. She had a simple, plain blog that gave nothing away about who she was. Her only bio said, "Proud female supremacist." I remember so vividly frowning at that. Feminism was about equality, right? Still, many of my Tumblr mutuals all reblogged the same posts warning others to block her for her transphobia, and I had to see what she was saying. JB was writing posts about how MTFs were not women and never would be, and things about how men were innately bad for and to women. I had never heard these ideas before. Curious, I went back to her blog every day after getting home from university. I would pick up where I left off the day before and read her posts about patriarchy impacting women in ways I hadn't considered before. I knew about patriarchy, of course, but I was thinking about the harms of patriarchy on the individual woman. JB would write things like, all men are either rapists or pro-rapist. She'd write about how she won't play along with people's gender identity. She'd talk about the ways in which BDSM or sex that required a safe word was bad. She'd say that trans women are not women. I'd never heard anyone say any of these things before. I was coming from a Tumblr dashboard full of decrees that whatever a woman does or wants to do is feminist because she is doing and wanting it. I'd never heard anyone suggest that men are a big problem in women's lives, or that BDSM is actually harmful, or that trans women are still men. I wondered how someone could write such mean and sensitive things. If a woman liked her boyfriend to beat her up in bed, how was that anyone's business? As a lesbian who had been out for 10 years at that point, I knew I thought men were pretty gross, but if men were so evil, why would any woman agree to be with one? On September 6th, 2013, JB had posted a reply to someone who'd been talking about how trans women can't possibly have male socialization nor male privilege because they're trans women. JB simply replied, "Except trans women actually are male, so there's that." Those 8 words changed my life in an instant. From having never read that sentence to 4 seconds later, my world changed in the blink of an eye. Trans women actually are male, so there's that. Trans women actually are male. Trans women actually are male. I reeled because even though the culture of the day understood biological sex was a thing, there was also this undercurrent that it didn't matter if trans women were biological males because inside they'd been women all along, so male socialization couldn't possibly apply to them. Their internal identity, monologue, understanding of themselves and the world was that of the woman within. Here, plain as day, Justice Badass laid it out. Trans women are male. Like a light switch flicking on, my understanding of the world, of patriarchy, of myself would never be the same. Trans women are male. Trans women are not women. Trans women can't be women. I felt an intense, sudden aloneness in realizing this. Everyone I knew was a very good liberal feminist who supported the trans cause, and I felt like the only person who suddenly now could see it for the farce it was. Anonymously, I had messaged Justice Badass to ask some clarifying questions about what I was beginning to understand. Her answers were incredibly kind, patient, and helpful to me in coming to terms with what I instantaneously now knew to be true. I have often said I wished I could thank her for what she did for me. She abandoned her blog in March of 2014, and I never got the opportunity. If I could, I'd say thank you for your patience. Thank you for being kind to me when I was stumbling my way through figuring it out. Thank you for refusing to back down on your beliefs. Thank you for never watering down your language or tone for the sake of someone's feelings. Thank you for being hardlined in what you believed. Thank you for waking me up. Thank you. 10 years later, I still revisit the messages I sent her that day because her blog still exists even though she abandoned it. And I think about how far I have come. 10 years later, I am more certain that radical feminism is the way forward than I've been certain of anything. Radical feminism has given me the liberation all women deserve. It has allowed me to be true to myself and my beliefs. It has given me the confidence to step outside the box patriarchy forced me into. Radical feminism has connected me with women who I now consider to be some of my truest, most precious friends. It's allowed me to be convicted in what I think and what I say. Radical feminism has given me the tools, the awareness, the passion, and the freedom to do what I want, say what I feel, and know the truth about the world. Radical feminism has improved my life in more ways than I could possibly name. I no longer worry about how I look. I no longer think I ought to shave my body. I no longer think my bare natural face is a problem. I don't worry about how my body looks or what size it is. I don't even consider the opinions of men about me or any part of my life. I don't make myself smaller for men. I don't soften my voice for men. I don't dumb down my knowledge for men's egos. I don't fear speaking up and speaking out when it's the right thing to do. Radical feminism taught me the realities of the world and gave me the strength and knowledge to know women deserve better. Once I opened my eyes, it was impossible to go back, and for that I am grateful. It let me leave behind all of my conditioning once I knew the truth. It gave me the courage to try to live authentically and be okay with who, what, and how I am. Radical feminism has given me freedom, happiness, and true, deep, and real friendships. I'm excited to see where I'll be on my journey 10 years from now. The first 10 have been healing. Here's to the next.